Welcome back, guys. This week we have another college football preview coming at you. This time, the Pac-12. If you have not checked out the ACC and Big Ten preview videos, I suggest you do that. Um, that would be greatly appreciated. Jake, what do you think about the Pac-12 this season? What stands
Yeah,
out to you?
first of all, first of all, if you haven't, go check out those two previous videos. We did the ACC 2 weeks ago, and last week we did the Big 12. Um, you can't talk about the Pac-12 unless you talk about it being a major conference this year, especially the six quarterbacks, that are widely known in this conference. So I'm gonna throw it back over to you, Jordan. Who are the six quarterbacks?
The six quarterbacks are Caleb Williams at USC, of course, returning Heisman winner. Bo Nix at Oregon, who a couple years ago transferred from Auburn, and actually Bo figures to be a Heisman favorite this season. Michael
Completely
Penix
turn you
Jr.
around, by the way, from Auburn. Completely turn you around.
He definitely did. Michael Penix Jr. at Washington, who is another Heisman favorite in my eyes. P.S. My pick to win it. DJ Uiagalelei transferred to Oregon State from Clemson, and it did not exactly work out for him at Clemson, but maybe a change of scenery will do him some good. Cam Rising is back for the Utah Utes. Utah is currently the back-to-back defending Pac-12 champion. I know Jacob's smiling because Utah might be his pick to win the conference. Who knows? And of course, you got incoming freshman Dante Moore at UCLA, who was originally committed to Oregon and flipped to the Bruins. So a little Eugene to LA action there. Jacob, who do you think are the key players this season in the Pac-12?
Yeah, I don't think you can talk about key players without, mentioning those top three Heisman finalists you mentioned. Bo Nix from Oregon, Caleb Williams, and Michael Penix Jr. I don't think you can even mention top players without mentioning those three. But I think you have the wide receivers at Washington. You have Jalen McMillan and Rome Agunje. From Washington, I think you got Carson Steele at UCLA. As you mentioned, Dante Moore. He's going to be competing for the quarterback job against Ethan Garbers at UCLA. I think Dante Moore will um, win it, coming into college, highly recruited, everybody wanting him, like you mentioned. Finally landing at UCLA, I think that he's going to think that he's going to win the job. Um, Another key player I want to touch on right now is senior wide receiver out of Oregon, Troy Franklin. He's going to be a big force for Bo Nix and the Oregon offense this year.
So yeah, I definitely agree with the three Heisman finalists or three Heisman favorites that Jake mentioned: Caleb Williams, Bo Nix, and Michael Penix Jr. Um, I definitely think Cam Rising is a player to watch though, because like I said, Utah is back-to-back Pac-12 champion. Can they make it a three-peat this year? I don't know.
We'll get
Um,
to that later. We'll say our predictions later. So
we
stick
will.
around if you guys want to hear that.
Key games this year. Quick note I want to mention the Pac-12 obviously does not have divisions, right? So at the
Yes.
end of the season, they will take the two teams with the best record in conference to play in Las Vegas for the Pac-12 title in early December. So it's very possible you might see a rematch from the regular season, right?
Mm.
Um, where you have a bunch of key games that will decide the Pac-12 race of who plays in the Pac-12 championship game. Um, and for my money, this is going to be the most interesting race, maybe of all time, honestly. Jake, what do you think of how exciting this race is going to be?
I think there's one game in particular that you cannot blow over. I think that's Oregon, Washington on October 14th. So, we talked about Bo Nix, we talked about Troy Franklin, we talked about Michael Penix Jr., we talked about Jalen McMillan, and we talked about Rome Agunze. I think that that game is definitely going to be a race, and whoever wins that game is likely going to be the front runner to make it to the Pac-12 championship game.
I definitely agree with that. Oregon Washington, that game in the middle of October is going to be massive and huge advantage for Washington having it at home. Um, I think again you have to look at Washington USC as well as a game to watch, right? Michael Penix Jr., Caleb Williams, um, those two um, Heisman favorites, and we've seen from time to time that head to head matters in Heisman. I don't think it should, but it matters. So watch for that game to have major not only Pac-12 implications but Heisman implications as well. Jake, what is another game to watch in your opinion?
Think, as I mentioned, Oregon with Bo Nix and Troy Franklin, I think Oregon's going to be in another big game this season, and I think that's against, I believe the game you just mentioned, USC. Bo Nix and Caleb Williams. We didn't even talk about wide receivers on the USC side. The biggest one, in my opinion, is going Singer. Um, I believe he's a senior wide receiver out of USC. So I think, he's going to be a big force for Caleb Williams. That game is going to maybe be the best showdown of all time, in my opinion.
So how about an underrated game, I guess, if you want to call it that? November 25th, the final game of the regular season, Oregon State and Oregon. Um, it's
Yeah.
possible we could see this game two. It's possible we could see this game 2 weeks in a row, really, because like I mentioned, the Pac-12 does not have divisions. So you take the two best records in the conference and have them play in Las Vegas. And also, if Oregon State makes the Pac-12 championship game, what did DJ Uiagalelei do in his first year at Oregon State? Did he completely turn it around? Like how did Oregon State get there? Did they get there off of vaunted defense that plays very well all year long? How? Jake, what do you think about Oregon State?
Yeah, I mean, Oregon State's obviously a king to watch, them Lane and Gigi Ungole. I think that, you know, Oregon State's getting a big upgrade at quarterback. As you mentioned earlier in this video, getting with Garrett Clemson. We'll see if a change of scenery is all he needs to Oregon State. I hope he works it out. Let's get to some Pac-12 championship game predictions. Jordan, I'll let you go first. Who you got?
All right. Um, I mentioned Utah, and unfortunately for any Utes fans out there, I do not have them three-peating as Pac-12 champions. I have the Washington Huskies winning the Pac-12 over the USC Trojans in Las Vegas.
Yeah, unfortunately, I do not have USC three-peating either. I think the loss of Dalton Kincaid is huge for Cam Rising.
You meant Utah. You meant Utah.
Does Utah have other wide receivers? Yes, I did mean Utah. Does Utah have other wide receivers? Of course they do. Are they as powerful as Dalton Kincaid? Can they get as open as Dalton Kincaid could? Yes, they possibly could. Are they going to make a bigger impact as Dalton Kincaid? No, and I think that's where a lot differs on that. So Utah is not repeating. Um, the game I mentioned earlier, Oregon Washington, I think we're going to see a rematch of that in the Pac-12 championship game again. And Washington, I think that game's going to come down to a while, but I think in the end, Oregon's going to take it, and Oregon's going to be named the Pac-12 champions.
Hmm. That's an interesting take there.
En route
Um,
to a Bo Nix Heisman season.
okay, so you have Bo Nix winning the Heisman, and I have Michael Penix Jr. winning the Heisman. So that game on October 14th, like I said, head-to-head shouldn't matter in the Heisman, but we've seen it matter no matter
But
what.
it does, and Bo Nix is going to be 2-0 against Michael Penix Jr.
Oh man. All right, so on to some betting numbers. Jake, what you got?
Let's get on to some betting numbers. The first betting number I have is Oregon over under 9.5 wins. I think you know what I'm going on this one. I am hitting the over.
All right. The problem I have with over-unders in this conference is we touched on some games earlier in the video, and the schedule is just so loaded. I cannot see any Pac-12 team maybe winning double-digit games, to be honest with you. I think this conference is going to cannibalize itself. So for that reason, I'm going with the under on Oregon.
All right. You said you can't see any Pac-12 teams winning over 10 games. So I think I know where you're going on this next one. I have Washington Huskies over under 9 wins. Again, I am going over. I
All
think
right.
again, I am going over. I think that these two teams will meet in the Pac-12 championships game. I think they will win double digits games to meet in Vegas at the end of the season.
All right. So with Washington, we mentioned that obviously we mentioned that like every Pac-12 team, the schedule is just loaded, right? They play Oregon, they play USC. Um, do they lose another game in there? Do they lose to maybe Washington State? Um, I know that's a rivalry game. Crazy things happen in rivalry games, right? Um,
Yes.
so I'm actually going to pick Washington to win 9 games. I'm going to go push on that.
Oh, okay. All right. So the next over under I have is kind of a disappointing over under, I guess, as you would say. You know, all the hype in the offseason with Deion Sanders coming over to Colorado, Stugo Sanders coming over to Colorado, Travis Hunter transferring from Jackson State to Colorado. The over under for the Colorado Buffaloes are placed at 3 wins. I think I am gonna slam the over on this one. What you got?
All right. So you mentioned the over/under win total on Colorado is 3.
Hmm.
This team won 1 game last year. Um, and Dion jumped and
I think it's
got
still a disappointing line with all considering all the hype in the offseason. I think 3 wins is disappointing for Colorado.
it is. You would definitely like to see Colorado win more than 3 games. It would be a pretty good story to see Dion do that in his first year, right?
Yes, it
Um,
would be. Completely turn this program around. I'm not saying that it will take the first year, but obviously 4, 5 wins is going to be a huge upgrade. It's going to take a couple of years to completely turn this program around, and I hope Dion knows that.
yes. So Colorado. So let me just read out Colorado's schedule real quick. They
Okay,
play at TCU to open up the season. Okay, that TCU just made the national championship game last year. Yes,
the
they got
TCU team that got embarrassed by Georgia,
yes.
and the
Um,
TCU team that also lost Max Duggan to the NFL.
fun fact, since you bring up Max Duggan, though, he Max Duggan was actually not originally the starting quarterback named out of fall camp last year. That was Chandler
He was
Morris.
not.
He's back for the Horned Frogs. They play Nebraska week 2, and let me just touch on that game. It'll be interesting to see Deion Sanders versus Matt Rule, right? Both coaches in their first year.
Oh, yeah,
And
definitely
then
will
they
be.
play Colorado State, which honestly, in my opinion, might be the only game they win all year. We'll see. And then they play at Oregon. I don't think they stand much of a chance in that game, if I'm being honest with you. They play
No,
USC. They play USC at home. Again, I don't think they stand much of a chance in that game.
no.
They play at Oregon State. They host Stanford at UCLA versus Oregon State versus Arizona, and then close out the year with 2 road games at Washington State and at Utah. Um, I mentioned Deion Sanders got 71 guys out of the portal. Yes, you heard that number right. 71 guys. That is basically a brand new team.
Everyone
Um,
wanted to come play for prime time. Everybody wanted to come to Colorado.
I guess. Um,
It's like that Oprah Winfrey GIF. You come to Colorado. You come to Colorado. You come to Colorado. Everybody's coming to Colorado.
yes. I'm going to go with the under actually for Colorado. I think they might be in for another rough year, and this is in no way, shape, or form a telltale sign of how good of a coach Deion Sanders will be.
I think that Colorado UCLA game all depends on who wins the quarterback battle at UCLA. And I wanted to touch on that before we get to another betting number real quick. We got Ethan Garbers against, highly recruited Dante Moore. As I mentioned earlier in this video, I think Dante Moore wins it. Not taking away from the good quarterback that Ethan Garbage is. Ethan Garbage is a good quarterback. He won this quarterback battle last year. Fair and square. I just think Dante Moore takes it away from him. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Dante Moore, highly recruited kid, right? As Jake mentioned, everybody in the country wanted him, from Alabama to Georgia to Ohio State to Texas, USC. He committed to Oregon at one point. Eventually flipped to UCLA. So I think Dante Moore will be the starter when UCLA faces Coastal Carolina week 1.
He should be. He should be. So let's get back to some better numbers. We got Arizona over under 5.5 wins. I think this Arizona team, I only had one Arizona player on my players to watch, and that is Jacob Cowling from a wide receiver out of Arizona. I think, though, I'm actually going to take the under on this. I think Arizona takes under 5.5 wins.
Yeah, so in order to go over 5.5, you got to make a ball game, right? 6 and over.
Yep.
Unfortunately, I just don't know if there's enough talent on Arizona to win 6 games. Now, I'm not saying that those guys aren't talented. Obviously, you got to be talented to have a scholarship to a Power Five school, right? Um, but yeah, give me the under on the Wildcats. I think this might be another rough year for them.
You know, in the Wildcats, as we mentioned for the Buffaloes, they play Oregon, they play Washington, they play USC, they play Utah. Are they gonna lose all the 4 games? Are they gonna stand a better chance than Colorado would have? We
Um,
don't know. We'll see what happens.
the
The next
college
bigger number I
football,
have,
college football is
go ahead.
so unpredictable.
So
Upsets happen
unpredictable.
every single week.
So unpredictable, but that's why we love the sport, right?
Correct.
All right, the next bigger number I have is USC over under 9.5 wins. This one is very hard in my opinion. I am actually gonna go the under on this one.
Yeah, so USC plays at Oregon and they host Washington, right? Um, I mentioned that the Pac-12 schedule is just so backloaded with all the teams in the conference playing each other, and I think they're going to cannibalize each other. So for that reason, I can't see USC winning 10 games. I know the talent is there, especially with the quarterback Caleb Williams, returning Heisman winner, right? Um, give me the under on the USC Trojans.
Caleb Williams was just ridiculous last year. I remember watching him in the Pac-12 championship game.
And
Well,
it, and by the way, can I mention one more thing on USC?
yeah, go ahead.
So the head coach is Lincoln Riley, right?
Yes,
What is the one thing we know about Lincoln Riley? He's going to have an amazing offense and a subpar defense.
he
My
hates
big,
losing.
my big question is what do, is how much, if at all, will that defense improve? Will it improve enough to get them maybe to the playoff? No, another New Year's Six game like last year? Um, Time will tell.
Yeah, the last bigger number I have before we go, is Utah over under 8.5 wins. I am actually going to take Utah over on this one. What you got?
So Utah, they open up the season with back-to-back Power Five non-conference games
Yep.
with Florida and Baylor. Um, I believe
Oh, Utah's got to win that week 1 game.
Utah has to beat Florida to hit that over. Um, Again, as I mentioned, the Pac-12 schedule is just so loaded. Utah plays Oregon State, Utah plays Oregon, Utah plays USC. I just cannot see them winning 9 games or more. Give me the under with the Utes.
All right. So we'll see how this Pac-12 conference shakes out this season, but we're in for a ride.